have. His expertise is in helping leaders and their organizations enhance their insightful abilities into the future to try and sculpt it into the best version of what it can be. Please welcome John Smart.
Always an honor to come to Bill. Thank you guys. Thank you. Yeah, classic. Thank you guys for coming out and putting this amazing thing together. Okay. It's going to help me remind me of my time. So, so my talk today is about kind of the most interesting topic. Well, 2 years ago, my talk at Bill was about the most interesting topic I've ever found, which is brain preservation. So if you go to the old Bill archives, you'll discover that. And I'm a co-founder of the Brain Preservation Foundation, which is trying to actually discover whether it's all of the structures that neuroscientists have implicated in learning and memory can actually be inexpensively preserved when we die. And you may have seen the small mammal prize that we gave out last month. If you're a mouse, you can go to the future. So, and this year we're trying to prove that that works for pigs too. So as you can imagine, it's a long road before a bunch of neuroscientists are going to say, yeah, for a very small amount of money, you could just hang out and come back. But we think that it's a very interesting and reasonable thing to investigate. So that's kind of my crazy hat. And then my day-to-day hat is Foresight. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And this is the most interesting thing I've come across in the field of foresight in my 16 years in the space. And that's this idea that these agents that we're starting to use, that are also called virtual assistants, Siri, Cortana, and Google Now and such, are going to start having simple, primitive models of our values, our preferences, and even our personalities. Just like a good butler has a good internal model of who you are and you kind of anticipate your next needs. And then the really interesting question becomes, when that system starts to work as a proxy for you, doing things for you, suggesting things to read, people to meet, it's going to advise you on what to buy that best reflects your values so you can get the most social change per dollar. It's going to advise you on what to vote on, what kind of initiative to actually crowd vote on and shove right up into the legislature from the bottom up. And you didn't have to think a lot about all of that. All the cognitive overhead for that got offloaded from you in your busy day to your agent, to your personal sim. So a personal sim is a version of a software agent that has a deep personal map of you. So those are the two terms that are kind of coming into vogue now. Intelligent agents and virtual assistants are kind of the two clunky terms that are still the dominant terms in the media, but we think those two terms are going to be kind of where things are going. So I have a post, about 7-part post coming onto Medium, which is one of these great blogging platforms. If anyone blogs, I recommend doing an excerpt of it on Medium. You're going to get 5 times as many people giving you comments. And the tools for posting on Medium are fantastic. And Medium is actually a very crude agent, really, if you think about it, because you can sign up for interests on topics that you want to learn about, and it has a very crude kind of intelligence, better than any of the other tools that I've seen out there. So it's not yet, conversing with you about the kinds of things that you want to learn about, but it's moving in that direction. And that's the argument I'd like to make in this presentation, is the more we think about our software as gaining a brain and use it in ways that maximize our values, the more we'll create the kind of world we want. So the details, like I said, 20-page post, 7 parts coming onto Medium, just with the same name of this. I'd love to get your feedback over there. So my passions are this little goofball, which she's seven months old, so I'm going to start with that, learning a lot about the world through her. 2003, I started this nonprofit that looks at accelerating change, things that go faster every year. In June of this year, I have a 500-page book coming online. It's called The Foresight Guide. It's going to be at foresightguide.com. And thanks, Alex. And in fall, we're starting this thing called Foresight University, $50 a class. It's basically an online space where you can get a certificate in foresight if you have any interest in that topic. So, in the guide, the two kind of big picture things, the 20-second things that I think are worth taking home are that there's 3 P's about the future you want to constantly think about. What's going to happen whether you want it to or not, what could happen, bad and good, and what you'd like, possible, probable, and preferable. And the other thing to keep in mind is when you talk about the future, everybody's looking for Weebles. Does anyone remember these things? Yes, sir. So a Weeble is a story that a bunch of cognitively diverse and smart people have tried to knock over. Well, what does it do? It just keeps getting back up. Why does it keep getting back up? Because that story about the future, the trends and the data and the evidence just seem to support it. So we don't want to just tell stories, we want to tell Weeble stories. And how do we do that? We get into places like this and we throw out these crazy ideas like this personal sim. And I see some people offended by this idea. And you should be, because there's parts of it that are offensive. When your mother dies in 2050, do you think you go to a tombstone to grieve, or do you think you're going to fire up Digital Mom and talk to her? What do you think? What about in 2030? She's only been running her sim for 10 years. Will she be smart enough at that point that you'll still want to talk to Digital Mom? Will you let Google make Digital Mom smarter every year by talking to all of her surviving relatives so that she's always there, able to kind of whisper in your ear when something interesting, contextually valuable happens, or not? Is that intrusive and creepy or weird, or is that potentially kind of empowering and kind of connecting you to your past? See how these things can go multiple directions, can't they? And we tell the stories now, we start thinking about them now, we start figuring out, well, we want to craft these things towards the preferable future that we want. So this talk, now we move into the fast stuff, okay? We're going to run out of slides. We're going to run out of time. These are the 3 topics that we want to talk about: where we are, where we may be going, and whether you want to drive there or sit in the back and be driven by others. And I'm suggesting you guys want to be in the driver's seat for these technologies, okay? You want to be making the agents, okay? Using things like open source, not just having big companies giving you the Comcast Xfinity agent that's going to be happy keeping you in a walled garden. No, I want my own version of the agent that is reflecting my values. So, where are we? We're here. This is from Wait But Why. I stole this. This is fantastic, right? We're in a low exponential. We think it's just going to keep going like this, but no. This is where the world's going, okay? And agents are going to be one of the primary ways to understand that. Now, our universe accelerates, and the Foresight Guide will show you that why computers are about 1 million times faster at learning than you and I are. So get over it. It's just true. So that means you need to use the computers in a way that humanizes yourself, okay? And everyone's heard of Moore's Law, but it turns out Kumi's Law is just as important, okay, as Kurzweil said in this 2005 book, right? And that's every 18 months, computers get twice as efficient at computing. And that's why the acceleration is going to slow down. They use less and less resources. Their ecological footprint per computation just kind of disappears into Interspace. That's why the thing doesn't slow down, okay? And so our frontier is really inner space, not outer space, and here's a good book on that. Physical inner space, faster, smaller, cheaper, and virtual inner space, as Alex was just talking about, smarter, stabler, better. You can previs things and stop problems from happening beforehand, okay? And so, remember D&D? We played that in high school, D&D. Well, densification and dematerialization are the 2 D&Ds you really need to think about. Everything is densifying, going into this kind of nanospace, and it's dematerializing, replacing physical things with information. That's chapter 2 of my guide, this kind of D&D world that we're going into, okay? And so there's 10 areas of technology change, and the things that are the engine of acceleration is this nanotech stuff, and then the steering is this information tech stuff. And all the other techs are being driven by those 2. Those are the 2 special techs, okay? And so this is the J-curve of wealth production in the last 1,000 years in Europe, and this is where the Industrial Revolution happened. So the things that cause wealth are not even human creativity so much anymore. It's technical productivity. It's the machines that we're creating, okay? And that's called TP, or technical productivity. So now we're in this world of unicorns. Unicorns, what are these? These are billion-dollar companies that were startups 5, 10, or 15 years ago. The first decacorns, $10 billion within 5, 10, or 15 years, are now on the horizon, okay? Show me, okay? The company making the $20 smartphones in the third world, that in the emerging nations, these kids are going to be wearing those while they learn some language that they're never going to use except in their little village. What are they going to learn at the same time from their agent? Yeah, everything, including the dominant languages of business, which are English, and of course, whatever the dominant coding languages are. These kids are going to learn, a human's going to educate them? No, this is called teacherless education. This is where this is the educational power of agents. Think of the disruptions that are coming in this stuff, right? By the way, at lunch, if anyone wants to hang out at lunch, we're going to do more discussions of this stuff because we only have 15 minutes here, okay? So come and get me at lunch if you want to kind of have a lunch somewhere in here. We'll do a thing, okay? Thank you. So, openness, tools, and scale are Andreessen's 3 words. That's the difference that makes a difference. The world's crazy open, crazy tools, crazy scale today. Okay, and you have to think about where that's going. So where may we be going? Well, turns out Moore's Law started ending in 2005. Thank goodness, because finally we could create multi-core chips. And what did that mean when we could finally create multi-core chips? It means that the deep learning world could happen. Okay? Because once you have multiple chips, computers can think like human brains. And that's called natural intelligence, not longer artificial intelligence, okay? It's deep learning. And so NVIDIA is the company, their first board comes out next month, okay? For your PC, that's a deep learning board. This is a brain on a on a plug-in board for your computer. And they're tackling self-driving. Remember Google? Google's self-driving car? NVIDIA is trying to root Google on the self-driving car strategy. So what are they doing? They're using these GPUs to train, and this is a little box that they announced. And next week in Silicon Valley at the GPU Technology Conference, they're going to be showing this off. This is a beer can or soda can sized box that sits in your trunk. It's the power of 150 MacBook Pros. It's not much more powerful than the existing laptop, 2 orders of magnitude more. What does that thing do? That allows DriveNet, as of last year, DriveNet on image recognition for self-driving went up to almost 90% over what? 6-month period? The freaking thing is waking up. So NVIDIA announces, hey, we're going to have this conference, and anybody who wants can put this computer super brain in the trunk of your car and hook it up to DriveNet and learn more on the cloud, and all of a sudden Google's totally on their back foot going, what? And they're saying, it's not just that. Hey, put one of these Jetson NVIDIA boards in your personal robot. We'll shrink it down, and it'll do stuff for you. And here's the Titan. That's going in like I said, next month in the desktops, right? And we're going to create this thing called the Tesla. Who knows what that's going to do? It looks kind of big and scary, right? And so now NVIDIA is seeing their GPU platforms as kind of the bottom end of all this crazy stuff that's going to happen in the education space. And of course, all these big players are also in their own deep learning startups or adventures and startups. And so this is the conference. And remember Macworld? Anybody go to Macworld? Early Macworlds? Remember how exciting that was? Well, this is the Macworld today, okay? And it starts next week, okay? And all these crazy people are going there to talk about putting brains into everything that you don't code. What do you do with these things? You train them. You train them up, okay? So the AI race is on. Deep learning started crushing conventional computer vision right around 2012, okay? And all these companies are now realize that this natural intelligence is the future. So that's the agent web, okay? The social web came. We're in it now. Remember that? And now this kind of semantic intelligent web fusion, Nova Spivak's Web 3.4.0, to me that's the agent web. You're going to want to have an agent as the front end to everything that you do. Do you want that agent to be supplied by some big company? Maybe, if they're playing fair by the rules, as long as there's lots of versions of them out there. But do you want to have, like Linux, the open source version? This is not just an app. This is an OS like open source, like Linux. Do I want to have, at the root level of my interaction with the world, do I want to have an agent that has private data that I know is private to me that nobody else has? That all my other friends are saying, yes, this code is good. This code is, with enough eyes, all bugs are shallow. This code is is proven to be trustable by past behaviors. And that's really a world where you go from the knowledge graph, where we are today, to kind of a truthfulness, probability, and values graph, where I can go and find all the other people that think like me, right? I've gone from the smart agent to a personal sim. I'm reaching for a can of tuna, and the thing gives me the little green arrow on my AR goggles, and I move 2 inches because this one's no longer killing the dolphins, or the mercury levels is lower. And my agent sends an automatic boycott message to the big bad boys and says, I'm not going to buy your crap until you do X, Y, Z, right? And did I even think about that? No, my agent did that for me. My personal sim is now a lobby sim. It's an interesting world we're in. Thank you.
John Smart.